Good morning to everyone joining us across the network on IndyCar Live. Happy to have you as we are just getting things started bright and early on this Saturday. Practice for Indy NXT by Firestone. Again, the 500th race in series history, the 5th race of this 2024 season. Everybody is chasing Jacob Abel, your points leader coming into this weekend. But Davey Hamilton, as far as these drivers navigating the course right now, how different was the track at, say, 8 a.m. compared to the heat of the day? These drivers were on track yesterday at just prior to 2 o'clock Eastern time, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. That's one of the hottest part of the day. I would imagine the conditions have to be vastly different.
Yeah, really different. And basically, the track itself, the heat in the track is very cold right now, so it's going to take just a little bit to get the tires up to temperature. That, like I say, the track, the asphalt's not helping those tires to get up to temp. So you're going to see a lot of sliding around this morning. We're going to see times down, I would assume. Well, right now they're down quite a bit, but they're just now getting going. But ambient temperatures down, track temperatures down. So by the end of this session, we see the sun is popping out. It is out, but a lot of shade on this racetrack too. So it's going to, it's going to be better here in a few hours than it is right now. The wings, and by the way, I just seen on the straightaway, barely could see it, but you could see a little bit of a vapor trail coming off one of the car's wings. I'm telling you, pretty heavy air right now, kind of condensing that and throwing a little vapor trail off these wings.
A couple big moments there. Christian Bogle into the runoff area, but the car right behind him was Salvador de Alba, and he kind of bounced his way through turn number 7. I thought he was going to smack the outside wall, but he caught it, and then Christian Bogle down to the runoff area of turn number 9. Ton of area to spin those cars back around or put them in reverse and get them back onto the racetrack, and that is exactly what the veteran driver from Louisiana has done in car number 7. Yesterday, Bogle found himself in the top 10 in practice in that 10th position. Drivers getting after it here in practice on the front straightaway. So we see Callum Edge kind of battling with Miles Rowe. Behind them, Jonathan Brown and Yuvan Sundaramurthy are tucked up, not side by side, but single file into turn number 1. So some good stuff early on in this practice session. We'll update you on those speeds in a moment. Let's go back to pit lane and Michael Young.
Yeah, the repairs have been made on Jacob Abel's car, and I looked at that toe link, and Davey, to your point, fairly bent, but bent enough. All it takes is just a little bit, as you hear Jacob Abel pull away pit lane, but that's all it takes is just that little bit, and I actually held the toe link up, and you can see it actually rise just a little bit, but not that much. It is something that slight can affect the car that much.
Yeah, the way these cars are designed, right?
That's right. These cars are so precise. And one thing in that toe link, they make it easy to adjust one way or another, because we'll change those throughout the practice sessions just to make sure they're exactly right. They all pretty much know they want to be. But you're right, Michael. You could barely see that bent like that, but it makes a big difference because it's on the wheel itself. And so 100 thousandths maybe on that toe link, maybe about 500 thousandths on the wheel itself.
The turn 8 runoff area has been pretty popular this morning. As we mentioned, Christian Bogle found it a little bit earlier, and now Jamie Chadwick has. And it looks like Michael D'Orlando in car number 3 has found a runoff area as well. That's at the end of the long straightaway down in turn number 3. In fact, you see Salvador de Alba heading in that direction, and now Michael D'Orlando will find a spot behind his Andretti Cape teammate to continue on in practice. But Davey, some long straightaways here in Detroit, but the nice thing, these runoff areas are massive, and boy, it saved a lot of cars and for drivers making mistakes. You're going to see a replay of Jamie Chadwick kind of heading downhill towards turn number 8 as she overcooked it.
Yeah, just overcooks that a little bit. We see it time and time again. It's easy to do. There's not a lot of grip on some of these braking zones, but another thing with the bumps there, and you're bouncing the cars off the ground, every line's a little bit different. If you hit it just a little bit different, we talked about yesterday, it could jump the tires off the ground, and anytime they're in the air, it doesn't slow down too good.
Everybody's chasing Louis Foster, who was within 3/10 of the quick lap that he turned yesterday. And right on cue, as we mentioned, Jacob Abel continues to pound around here, getting some speed. Miles Rowe's going to move over and let a couple cars go around him, and he's going to find his way onto pit lane as one of the Juncos cars goes to the runoff area. A little crazy, you Michael Young, right now in turns 8 and 9, as a lot of drivers working some different strategies.
Well, and it'll only get crazier as the day continues. Miles Rowe heads to pit lane, and our quick driver thus far, Louis Foster, sits on pit lane. They're actually adding camber to the rear tires. Added a little bit of camber to the left, now adding a little bit to the right. Also an adjustment to that front wing. I believe they added a little front wing to the number 26 machine of Louis Foster, trying to find a little more speed here on the streets of Detroit, Ryan Marine.
And remember, this is a split pit lane, right? So one side of the pit lane has a number of different teams. My side of the pit lane is basically the HMD Armada, and then Juncos Hollinger and Miller Vinatieri. A couple of the HMD cars have come in, including Miles Rowe, as also Callum Hedge. As we go red, we do have a car in the fence. It's Salvador de Alba, apparently, that has made right side contact, and that's brought out the red. And actually, this comes at a pretty convenient time, I think, for a lot of these teams that were planning on coming in around this part of the practice session to assess the race cars, make the tire changes, and also setup changes on their machines. So all of a sudden, pit lane getting very, very busy as we've gone red here on the streets of Detroit.
Yeah, it's going to get so busy, you're going to see all 20 cars back to pit lane because, as Ryan mentioned, a red flag situation is out for Salvador de Alba Jr. Down in turn number 1. Into that runoff area, David, where we can see there's been a ton of rubber laid down of cars spinning back around. He's got that car tucked all the way to the right side. From our camera angle, can't tell if he made contact with the wall, but he was so far over there, it leads me to think that there's at least a chance. Either that or, I don't know anything, he might have killed the engine and just can't get it restarted.
He stayed in the car. Here we got a little replay right now as he locks it up and just runs it straight off right there. The camera angle is a little bit hard, but yeah, it looks like it just comes to a stop. He didn't even look like he tries to turn around, so it must have stalled the car in that runoff.
Well, you can see, though, those front Firestone tires, those things locked up and sliding through that runoff area, unable to turn, and again, makes the wise decision rather than try to make that corner and risk burying it in the tire barriers that we've seen so many drivers do over the years. Just takes it to the runoff area, and thankfully the AMR safety crew can get to him quickly.
And the rest of the takers on pit lane now choosing those new Firestones. Jacob Abel now in pit lane, changing over to the new Firestones. Mike D'Orlando has already been and gone. Nice quick stop for them. They changed onto 4 new Firestones, and walking up pit lane, Louis Foster now making the transition as well. Looks like they're going to the new Firestone, so our quick driver may get even quicker.
That's kind of a scary thought.
Yeah,
he looks plenty quick right now, Davey. Fresh off a win in Indianapolis, Louis Foster starting to really flex here, and interested to see what he'll be able to do on a fresh set of Firestones.
Yeah, pretty interesting. I would have thought that he was on them already, so pretty impressive to be able to turn that mid-106 range with old tires on it. You know, he's basically a half a second slower with the tires that he has on. D'Orlando starting to move his way up. We're going to see a lot of moving around right now with the new Firestone tires. Obviously, you get more grip with a newer tire, and as long as the balance stays the same, they should really start dropping these times.
Ready cars right now in the top 5. Callum Hedge is 6th fastest. 7th is Jonathan Brown. 8th is Reese Gold. What'd you see there, David?
Well,
Nolan Siegel.
So I had a little photo of Siegel going really slow, kind of making sure he has clean track in front of him. He comes off turn 7, timeline right before turn 8. He fires it off. He's going to make a big lap. What does he do? Shoots it right off the corner into the runoff area. So much for that. And by the way, Siegel's 17th quickest right now. That's one reason I had an eye on him, thinking, okay, he's fast. We know he's fast. He's going to put a good number up. But, boy, he messed that lap up for sure.
Yeah, and he's turned 18 laps. That's maybe the most concerning part is he's been out there pounding away, and that car just doesn't seem to have a lot of speed right now.
Well, if he had the new Firestones on, he just messed them up. He did lock him up a little bit. He went to the runoff area. He's giving the good out of the tire right now. We can see that just overshot it. Now that tells me he was going to be aggressive. He was going to try to lay a lap down, but didn't even make it past the first corner, past the timeline.
You can make a plan, but sometimes it just doesn't matter. As Jamie Chadwick and Christian Bogle go side by side down into turn number 8. Or excuse me, that's James Rowe. Those cars look very similar. He got around Christian Bogle there as everybody's turning laps. In fact, Jamie Chadwick, she's getting her car turned around right now in one of the runoff areas down in turn number 8. Back to Michael Young on pit lane.
Yeah, just an interesting note, and I'll let Davey go a little bit on describing what's happening here. Louis Foster, this left rear and right rear, they're adding spacers and taking out spacers, adjusting the camber on this car.
Yeah.
But they are pulling out one small little spacer and adding another. So we're talking millimeters, even if that, of adding and taking away. So I'm not sure if they're adding a little more or taking away a little more, but it's so precise, the camber on these cars, trying to get those rears to get as much traction and as much pad as it can onto this surface.
Yeah.
Ryan Marine, just 12 laps for Reese Gold in this practice session. He sits 10th fastest.
And he's out of the car. I see some liquid under the car as well, and you're looking at your wrist, Reese. First of all, are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. She started overheating. There's something wrong. I don't know what yet, but something wrong with it, so we had to park it for now. But
How disappointing is it? How much does it set you back with qualifying coming up?
Yeah, it's definitely not ideal. You know, clearly we have a quick car. Kaio's, you know, P2 or something. He's up front. So, like to get more laps in. I mean, we were improving, so definitely a setback, but we'll see what we can do.
The good news is you've got a ton of teammates, data that you can draw from. Is that the game plan?
Yeah, I mean, definitely that helps. So I have a lot to look at, so I'll just review the most I can and see what I can do for qualifying.
Sorry to see you out of this practice session. We'll see you in qualifying.
And unfortunately, there was no damage.
Miles Rowe.
There is damage to Miles Rowe car right now. It's going to be a red flag right now. Left rear folded up. Yeah, it looks like that could be off of that turn 3 hairpin. Not exactly sure until we get a little better look at it, but it's definitely the left rear is wiped out.
Yeah, he has made pretty significant contact. You mentioned it. That left rear suspension just completely destroyed on that car as Miles Rowe has had an accident here with just under 10 minutes to go in practice as he was pushing for speed. He'd been struggling down in the 19th position, Davey. This was coming off of turn 2, heading towards that long back straightaway. He was tucked in a pack of 4 cars and just lost it.
Yep, so what he tried to do there is there were 2 cars in front of him, a little bit slower holding him up. He really tried to, too early, try to get underneath of him on exit that corner, got down, just pinched the car off too much. When he got on the throttle, just spun the tires, and around he went.
Davey, right at the checkered flag, Nolan Siegel gets bumped to P2 because how about Louis Foster? He lays down a big lap. Here comes Michael D'Orlando. He just threw down a big lap as well. Foster goes to the top at a minute 5.72. That moves Siegel down to second at a minute 5.965. And D'Orlando nearly matches him at a minute 5.995. Kyle Collette fourth. James Rowe, the Irishman, he turned his fastest lap right at the practice ending at, he goes to fifth quick at a minute 6.404. So even with, the red flag at the end, Davey, drivers squeeze a little more speed out of these cars right at the end.
Right at the end they are. We have a few more to cross that timeline right now, but everywhere, that last lap was a good one for a lot of people except for Siegel.
Yeah, Jacob Abel just moved up a spot too. He moved into the top 5 at a minute 6.008.
Rowe goes to P2. Yeah, Rowe, Siegel, Orlando, Collette, Abel in 6th out. Hedge with a good lap in that 7th spot. Jamie in 8th, Brown and Escato. That's what a good lap for that rookie in that number 75 car, Unco's Holland.
Under 4 tenths, and you've got Foster, Rowe, Siegel, D'Orlando, Collette, and Abel. I think qualifying is going to be fascinating. Pretty significant gap once you get past 6. That's nearly a half a second down to 7th place running Callum Hedge, Jamie Chadwick, who ended up in 8th, Jonathan Brown 9th, Ricardo Escoto, as Davey pointed out, really strong right there at the end. He moves up into the top 10. Again, first weekend driving these cars. Got a chance to test at Mid-Ohio, but really first time with the bullets flying for Escato. He goes 10th fastest. Bryce Aaron ends up 11th, 12th Josh Pearson. Nolan Aller creeps up to 13th to hometown kids, so that is a nice sign for Nolan. He finishes 13th in this practice session. Then it's Christian Bogle, Niels Colin, Jack Miller, Yuvan Sundaramurthy, Reese Gold 18th, 19th is Miles Rowe, 20th Salvador de Alba, and then 21st Lindsey Brewer.